Welcome to Shine's podcast. I'm Sandy Dixon, and I'm sitting across the beautiful Caitlin Quigley. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I am so enlivened of being around you all the time, and I don't get to see you enough, so this is really a special treat for me. And I hope to make it just as special for the listeners today. So for those people who haven't tuned in before, these are Shine podcasts that we do on a monthly basis, bringing together either interviews such as this with teachers here, or meditations and Dharma talks. But today, it's all about Caitlin. She didn't know that. She thought we were going to be talking about something else, but we're talking about her. So let me tell you a little bit about her. First of all, she is a Shine teacher here, and she teaches our plus-size yoga classes and workshops as well, correct?
No workshops yet, but they're in the works.
Oh, you mean I just put you on the line to make a workshop up? She does workshops here, everyone. Soon to be workshops. I know it's going to happen. I know it. Okay, I also know that she's a graphic designer. She was a competitive swimmer at once. I'm not going to say when.
Thank you.
And everybody's going to wonder, was it the Olympics? She loved snowboarding when she lived in Colorado. She's curious, adventurous, sometimes fearless, which we'll have to get into later, and she loves to camp. Now, that's not all I know about her. There's so many other things that I would like to share, and they're going to be brought out within these questions, but I have to get down to the nitty-gritty right away. Why does your dad call you Amelia Earhart? I gotta know. She wrote to me and she said, "Oh, something you don't know about me. My dad's nickname for me is Amelia Earhart."
His nickname for me is Amelia Earhart because he says that I'm super adventurous. I don't care what other people think, and I just go for it. And so, and it's a good thing, but sometimes I can get in a sticky situation, but I always find my way back out of it. Unfortunately, Amelia didn't, but we don't know where she is right now.
She's right here. She's incarnated in you.
Yeah. So that is my nickname with my dad. I'm the middle of 5 kids, and out of all 5 kids, I was the most independent and the most curious and adventurous probably out of all of them. So my dad specifically, I think he loved seeing that part of me, but it's also a challenge for the parents to see their kid just be like, "See ya, I'm out of here." I moved to Colorado, and I was the only one out of all my siblings to leave after high school, and I went 1,500 miles away.
Wow.
With a bike, and back then there was no cell phones. Well, there was, I just didn't have one.
And you wrote that too on your bio for me. You said how many years?
I didn't have a car until I was 24.
So you just used your bike wherever you went?
I just rode my bike everywhere, yeah. Everywhere. Grocery store, to work. I used to waitress. I'd, take it there. And, I really enjoyed riding my bike. And then when I moved back to Illinois, and I got into the corporate America, but I had to get a car to get to work.
Had to get a car.
Yeah.
You poor thing.
I know.
Oh, man. Well, I'm guessing that your balance had to be pretty darn good to be riding in places like Colorado, up and down mountains. And
it was crazy. I was so good at riding my bike at one point, I never ever had to touch the handlebars.
Wow.
Because I rode all the time, and I used to have this guitar too, and I'd have it strapped to my back, and I'm such a hippie. And I'd ride to school with the guitar strapped to my back and no hands, just kind of leaning back and just pedaling to class,
Things you didn't know about Caitlin. All your students right now are going, "What?"
Yeah, right.
All right, so speaking of that, you do have a strong following of students. They love you, and no doubt everybody who meets you loves you. What got you into yoga? How did you get in yoga? Maybe you could take us back there.
That's a good question. I started my yoga journey when I was in Colorado, and I thought of it more of a physical activity. I had no clue how much deeper it was than that. And I started out because I was learning to snowboard, and I wanted to be able to stay flexible. That's what, in my head, I thought that's all yoga was. So I took yoga as a college course.
Get out. That sounds like my Hawaii college courses.
Amazing. That's amazing. And my other college course was snowboarding 101. It was amazing. And so I'm like, all right, this is what I'm gonna take yoga 101 to help me prepare for snowboarding 101. And that's how I started. And it was an okay experience. I didn't get anything from it as far as mind calming or anything like that. It was literally just physical. The teacher too, I never remember her talking about the breath in class, actually, now that I look back. It was all just physical, you know? But that's what got me started. Then I never went back to yoga because I thought of it only as a sport, you know what I mean? So then when I moved home from Colorado and I had to get I'm doing quotation marks right now, real job.
I think everybody heard those quotation marks.
Then that's what brought me back to yoga, because if there's one thing that I do is I overwork myself. I've done it my whole life, and I was working 2 jobs. I think at that time when I came back to yoga, I was working 3 jobs, and just trying to, I don't know, stay busy, distracted, whatever. And I remember at that moment I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so exhausted. I need to take care of myself. And so I went to yoga class. And actually my first teacher was Karen Weber.
Oh, one of our teachers here at Shine.
Yeah, and she's amazing. And she's a great teacher.
Yes.
And I just hovered in the back. You know, I'm plus size, curvy girl, and I didn't want to get in anyone's way. And I went in, and you're a little intimidated going into this class with, you know, beautiful Karen Weber, and then these students who are like obviously very thin-bodied contortionists, and then immediately you start to compare yourself. Oh, what did I just get myself into? I'm in this class, and I'm looking at all these people, and I feel like they're looking at me too, like, girl, what are you doing here? Even though they're probably not, but in my head, that's what I think. You know what I mean?
Very much so.
So I'm in class, and I'm doing my thing, and Karen was doing these beautiful asanas, and I'm going to say a solid half I couldn't do. I just physically couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And either it was too challenging, or my body and my flesh got in the way. Like, you know, I can't do twists as easily as someone who's very thin because of the extra flesh, you know what I mean? So there's some limitations there. And so, but I remember when I left class, I was like, man, I really don't feel like I belong here. That's what I thought. And I was like, but I felt so good after class, and I was like, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Is she allowed to swear, everyone? Cover your ears.
And I'm like, damn it, I deserve this. And that was what I thought when I left class. And I'm like, I'm coming back. And I did, and I kept coming back. And as Karen taught the asanas, I would just adjust them to what felt good to me, even though I really had no idea what I was doing.
So no one was helping you through it? Not,
No.
I mean, like Karen's not coming over to you saying, try this, try that.
No, I think, and so this is how this got brought up, right? After a few classes, I came up to Karen afterwards, and I said, you know, Karen was a great teacher, and she would talk to me after class and stuff. And I said to her once, I said, are there any plus-size yoga teachers? And she said, no, but there needs to be. And that's what kind of got the wheels turning. And then I said to her, I go, you know, I'm just kind of like adjusting these poses, these asanas, making modifications that feel better for me. And she said, you were doing the right thing. That's why I never came up to you to adjust you, because you were just, she said, you knew what to do. And she said, so that's why I didn't, you know, interfere or whatever. So she thought all along, like I knew already how to adjust and stuff like that. But really, it was probably the first time in my life that I actually was listening to my body and determining for myself what felt best to me, you know?
Yeah. Which is amazing, because that's exactly, I know what you do in your classes, and what some of your students that I've gotten to meet have said just that. They've come out feeling that they've listened to their body for the first time and tried something that will really resonate with them.
Yeah, and it's empowering too when you finally give yourself permission to allow yourself to feel and to be and to adjust what feels best. Because a lot of times I feel like these students, and it could be any size, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you just have to be, just because you're large, you have these struggles. Everybody has these struggles on their own level, you know what I mean? But, you know, a lot of times we put ourselves in these asanas, and this is also off the mat. In life, we put ourselves in these situations that don't feel good. So why are we staying in them?
Yeah.
So why are we staying in the pose if it doesn't feel good? It's not serving you. You're actually not getting the function of the pose. Just like in life, why are we staying in this situation if it's no longer serving you? And like you get this sense that you feel like you have to have permission or acceptance to change or to, you know, switch things up to feel better for you.
Okay, so let's go right into that. It's a meaty topic right away, but you were blessed to know that you could listen and change it. But when you said off the mat, there are certain circumstances that you find yourself in, they're not serving you. How do you know when it's really time to get out of that pose, out of that situation, versus staying and modifying or staying and making a change while you're in it? Can you speak to that? Do you know if there's an answer to that to help your students?
That's a really good question too. You know, it can go two ways. So we'll start with like on the mat as far as asana. If you're in an asana and, you know, it doesn't feel good and you have to adjust it to make it feel better, then you should do that. It takes a while sometimes to allow yourself to do that. And again, it's an acceptance thing, it's a permission thing. And but then it goes the opposite way too, right? So I have some students and I do the same thing. I've been practicing forever and I can probably take it a little deeper. So what's holding me back from taking it deeper? So there's two things. You have to know when to let go, but you also need to know when to put the next foot in front of the other. And so it's the same thing in life too. And I think really what it comes down to is your intuition and listening to what your body is telling you, what your breath is telling you, what your heart is telling you. Don't listen to what your mind is telling you. And that's one thing I've learned is like, don't pay attention to what your head says all the time, because I'm going to say majority of the time it's wrong. Is from my personal experience on and off the mat. Both.
All right, so here you are watching yourself go through things, and you say it yourself, there's times I should go deeper, I've chosen not to go deeper. That happens, right? And I'm going to not ask this as a question, but more put it as the statement to remind students that we're going to get it wrong sometimes, but that's part of the practice.
Yeah.
It's okay that you didn't go and take that step when the step needed to be taken.
Right.
You just know it, you reflect, and move on. Try it again.
It is also okay that if you can do it today, but you can't tomorrow, it is okay.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So sometimes I'll tell my students, hey, instead of doing it one leg at a time, let's do two. And they'll be like, you know, like, that's a lot, you know. And I'm like, and this is what I say, do it one time if it feels good, do it two times if it feels good, keep going if it doesn't feel good, and you have to listen to your breath, because the breath doesn't lie in the poses, and you have to be able to listen to your heart and your body, and if it's good, then go with it. If you're tired, or if 3 is all you can do today, then go back to one leg. But then what you're doing again is you're empowering the student to listen to themselves, feel what's going on in their body, because we don't do that enough, and to make the decision, hey, do I want to put my foot in front of the other and give it a shot and do an extra one, or is this enough and I'm going to go back to this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much. And I loved how you said that the breath doesn't lie.
Yeah.
So let's take that off the mat.
Yeah.
Can you apply that still
Yes.
when you're going through something and you realize that your breath is really educating you?
Yes.
Talk about that.
Anxiety is a big one. When you feel like off the mat, when you feel like something isn't right, if you pay attention to your breath, because it doesn't lie to you. Pay attention to how you're inhaling, how you're exhaling. Are your breaths short? Are you barely breathing? Do you notice yourself holding your breath? You know? And then all of a sudden, if you notice, or if you're familiar with anxiety too, a lot of times what causes anxiety is shortness of breath. So why are you having anxiety? What's causing the anxiety? Why is your breath not calm and smooth? Because you're not calm and smooth. You're not in a state of peace. And so if you pay attention to your breath, let's say you're at the spa, or you're outside walking, or just reading a book, pay attention to your breath. What happens to your breath during those times of relaxation and peace? Your breath is long, it's smooth, it's comfortable, you don't have anxiety, you know, things like that.
Yep.
So it's like in class, if we listen to our breath, you can grow. Off the mat, if you listen to your breath, you can grow.
That's beautiful. I love it. And really, truly, it's not just, they were talking something esoteric off the mat. Mm-hmm. It's really tangible. It's something you can measure and practice on both places. All right, so let's talk about times that you've had to do something like this, where you've had to make that next step or that next leap. I know you're in a redefining period right now in your life, and maybe you can share that if you're comfortable and talk about the challenges of stepping with both feet, or just one, or not at all.
Mm-hmm. You know, my students know this too, because I've even talked about this with them in class. Is a few weeks ago I was laid off from my job, corporate America, my full-time job, and even though it's a scary thing, it's like I'm at the point where, because I honestly believe because of my practice, I'm handling this in such a different way than what I would normally do. Normally, I would go into a state of panic and anxiety and freak out and go 100 miles an hour in one direction and grab the first lifeboat that came my way for security purposes. But now, for the first time, right, I'm listening to myself, and I'm like, I stop, I take a deep breath, and I'm like, okay, it's gonna be okay. Now is an opportunity for something new. So instead of looking at it as something, negative, I'm trying to focus on, the positive that's gonna come from this situation. And how do I do this in a way where I have complete clarity, so when I do move forward, I know that I'm making the best decision instead of a decision based on fear and panic, which is what I would normally do. Mm-hmm. That's my history, And so for the first time ever, when I came into a hard situation, I decided that I am going to breathe, and I'm going to feel. And those feelings came like a roller coaster. I mean, sometimes I was high and like, this is great, I get to spend more time with my son. Sometimes I was really low, like, I have no clue what I'm gonna do. I'm panicking, like, what about my family? What if we end up on the streets in a year? Mm-hmm. And like all these ideas come into your head. But I decided that instead of ignoring these feelings, instead of ignoring the situation that I'm in, I'm digesting the situation that I'm in. So actually, I had not applied for one job yet. And what I'm doing is I'm practicing, I'm enjoying being mindful around my son for the first time and being able to enjoy some time with him. I'm digesting all these emotions that are coming up because of the situation and allowing them to come up and allowing to let them go too at the same time. Because then I think that the deeper I get in my practice, and after these, emotions of being laid off, I've finally been able to let them go, then I will be able to think more clearly and pick a direction that is will lead me to my true self. You know what I mean? To true happiness, something that I haven't really had an opportunity to do because my job is always in the way. And then God's like, hey, now it's not anymore. So now what are you going to do?
Well, you make an interesting point about the job was in the way. And I'm sure there's times, though, that you can reflect and realize that job was necessary for this next step. And I'm sure this is the type of information you give your students as well, right? There's moments in your life that you think, thank God that's over, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
But thankfully, you went through it
Yeah.
because it brought you to this clarity or this new awareness.
Yeah.
It's part of that redefinition of yourself. It's not really maybe redefining as much as rediscovering that true essence.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey, that's for sure. And you know what I notice is every time in my life when there's about to be a change, again, it goes back to listening to my intuition and listening to my heart and just allowing things to happen without trying to control them all the time, which I struggle with because, you know, you think that if you control it, that nothing bad will happen to you. It's so not true. So if you actually just sit and breathe and allow things to be and let things open up, I think that's where like the true beauty comes in. But, you know, it's funny, I was talking to my yoga mentor before I got laid off. And she goes, how's everything going? And I'm like, it's going pretty good.
Before you got laid off.
And that's when I knew. It was that moment. Not that I'm saying when everything's smooth, that, you know, I'm not saying that you have a smooth moment, everything's going to be chaotic afterwards. But in my experience, it's usually every couple years is what I had this feeling back in October that there was going to be a shift with my job. I had a feeling during a meditation, and instead of ignoring it and suppressing it, I felt it. I told my husband about it. We switched insurances from mine to his, and this was all before I even knew I was getting laid off.
Because you listened.
Because I listened. Because I was in yoga practice, and it gives me the opportunity to be quiet and be with myself, to listen to myself, listen to God, whatever He wants to say to me, is the chance that I can actually hear and see. You know what I mean? That's why I think the yoga practice is so important, because in today's society, there's so many distractions all the time, and it gets in the way of actually seeing and feeling the truth.
Right, and some of your students may be listening right now and saying, well, yeah, I always want to listen, but there's so much to listen to, and that brings that anxiety level back, or that panic of, which one do I do? Do I switch the insurance? Do I drop the job? Do I start looking for another job? Do I go get extra training and yada, yada, yada? So this idea of coming back and listening to that intuition takes practice, and you've had years of this practice, and to keep encouraging your students that don't give up hope, that just because it seems overwhelming at some point and you choose maybe something that you would change if you did it over again, that's okay. It's the learning lesson.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would just say, when you get to that, and I'm in it all the time, I don't know which direction to take. I don't. Even right now, I don't know which direction to take. But I stop, and I breathe, and I just let go. And I think that something's going to happen.
It's a trust.
It's a faith. It's a faith.
Yes.
To know that you're doing everything that you can, you know, you're still like putting things out there, putting yourself out there, but you're not controlling the outcome. You're letting the outcome come to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's the direction that you should go in. And then guess what? That might be the direction that you should go in. And then guess what?
It might not.
And then in a couple of years, oh my God, there's another shift. And that's life. That's totally life. And that's what I've learned. That's what I've learned. And so, like, you know, and you know how they say when it rains, it pours? Oh my God, it's so true. It's so true. And all I can do is just, like, when you get in that situation, I just kind of laugh, because that is life. It's like, you know, I lost a loved one. I lose my job. My dog tore both her ACLs.
Ooh.
But this all happened within a month. When it rains, it pours. But I'm the best I've ever been.
Yeah.
I'm not letting this stuff affect me like how I normally would let it.
Right.
I'm breathing, I'm trusting, I'm having faith.
And having bad days and good days.
And good days.
It's not just, she's up.
Yeah.
It's
and if you're up, you can't be like that either because there's no balance. So like there's some people who go to yoga class like 3 times a day because they love that euphoric feeling, you know what I mean? But that's also, you're also missing the function though of the practice, because if you're constantly in a state of elation, you know, you don't see the other side of things and it's just not balanced, you know?
Well, I love that you just said that, because my next question to you was, how do you help a student when they're on the mat and you tell them to feel into something and they say, but I don't like what I feel?
I totally understand, because there's times that I don't like what I feel either. But, you know, what I say is, why don't you like what you feel? And it's okay. And if you don't want to think about it today, it's okay. It's okay. Then let it go. Or put it in your back pocket for later and just breathe. Because the breath is going to help you through this scary moment. And what I've learned is, most of the time, the scary moment isn't as scary as we make it to be. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it passes and you're like, that wasn't so bad. That wasn't so bad. I could do this. You know what I mean? So if you don't like what you feel, you know, why don't you like it? And just ask yourself a couple questions to discover yourself as just a form of discovery with no judgment. You know what I mean? No judgment at all. And if you're not ready to know why you don't like how that feels, it's okay. Maybe tomorrow you will be, maybe not. And maybe next month you will be, maybe not.
A little bit at a time.
A little bit at a time.
All right, Amelia Earhart. We're going to jump back into that title that your dad gave you, because early on you had this fearlessness. You still have this fearlessness. But you know there are students out there and people that might be listening to this that haven't even stepped into Shine Yoga yet, that are too scared. They don't have that fearless or courageousness in them to try something new. Because possibly, and there's lots of reasons why, but I like to think of it as the story that they were given early on has kind of stuck with them of, I can't because. I can't do this because I'm this shape. I can't do this because I've never been flexible. I can't do whatever, fill in the blank. Have there been times before your fearlessness kicked in that you can remember, or maybe times that encroach upon you now that you're very aware of them, where the old stories start to try to take over? And as you said earlier, you don't listen to that mind that can really drag you into a different direction, but you're aware of them. Can you maybe share that with the listeners?
Oh, yeah. You know, especially like growing up and being chubby my whole life, since I was 5, I was chubby. I never felt like I was good enough. Like that was perfect. Now I'm going to get emotional. So you get this in your head that you're not good enough, which is probably one of the reasons why I was fearless, because I think deep down I was like, damn it, I am good enough.
Yeah.
But these other people are telling you that you're not, and you're like, well, why? Because I'm bigger? I can't ride a bike? I can't swim? I can't snowboard? Why? Because I'm bigger? Watch me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my personality, right? And so that's why I was a swimmer, a biker, a snowboarder, and then I went into yoga and noticed how they're all physical activities. Because immediately they think because you're this size or whatever that you can't do what other people are doing, but it's bull.
It is.
You know? You can do it. You might not be as fast, but it's not a race. You know? So my fearlessness kicked in probably when I was in junior high is when I got fed up about it. Like that early on.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm a fighter at heart. That's just my personality. And thank God for the yoga too, because it really does help me.
She says this all with a smile on her face. She's one of those sneaky warriors that will come in and beat the crap out of you.
That's exactly it, though. And it takes a lot to get me mad, you know, but I'm fiery. I do have a very fiery center, you know. And probably some of that came from like the bullying when you're younger too. You know, you could either clam up and which some people do, like totally clam up and hide from everybody, or you can come out fighting. And I chose to come out fighting, you know. And then it got to the point where I was like, you know, this was before even like the size acceptance revolution really even came out, like when I got into the yoga and stuff. Like, it's just like, I just wanted to create a space where there's so many large-bodied people in this world too. It's not like there's like one or two. I mean, it's like there's a lot. It's our sedentary lifestyle and sitting in front of computers and the conveniences of fast food and all that stuff that kind of, and then for the love of God, also genetics.
Yes.
Straight up. It's like, you know, it's just, this person's tall and skinny because of genetics. This person's, you know, short and chubby because of genetics. It's as simple as that too. And it doesn't mean that, you know, you're more worthy or less worthy, but society kind of put that in our heads, but it's getting better nowadays, you know what I mean? So, but I wanted to create a space for, you know, larger bodied people to be able to feel loved and feel peace and feel like they can accept their body even when they feel like nobody else can.
No matter what story is out there.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the one of the things that I love so much about you. Your fighting spirit that comes out is more, I reflect that as your loving spirit. You have such a desire to love not only yourself, but everyone. And it's a really good indication or a good reflection for people to remember that it starts here. It starts in our hearts before we can give that comfort to other people or to help them through this. So if you're listening now and you don't feel you have that courage, or that an old story has been replaying in your head that you're just now discovering, you want to be surrounded by people like Caitlin. You want to be surrounded by people that understand that and come see us, come be with her, hear her talk, listen to this podcast over and over, because it's so evident, Caitlin, you walk your walk. You do your yoga on and off the mat. And we're better for it as a community. I can only imagine your family feels the same way. If they were here to be interviewed, they'd be saying, we're better people because of the love that you have for yourself, that you want to share with others so they can get there too. Story or no story, courage or no courage, we are in this together, and we're here to support one another. So if there would be one final piece that maybe you want to give to the listeners, and it doesn't have to be just on this image thing, maybe it's something totally fun too, what would you want to say to everybody?
You know, take the time to love yourself and be with yourself, and take the time to give yourself some love is really the best thing that I can say, which is one of the reasons why I love my students coming to class even just once a week, because it's like, you know, 90 minutes or an hour or whatever of time where you're actually like loving yourself unconditionally. And I think that we don't do that enough.
Yeah.
In today's world. We don't. I don't. I mean, I still even struggle with it. And when you're working and, you know, I'm a mom and I got all these things, you always put yourself on the back burner. But I'm telling you that if you keep ignoring yourself, you keep putting yourself on the back burner all the time, like, it wears on you, and your breath gets shorter and your anxiety goes up, and then you get worried and you lose clarity. And it's like, I guess what I want to say is, you know, take the time to love yourself. And even if that's yoga or meditation or taking a walk or getting a massage or having a cup of coffee or calling a friend or coloring in your book, it doesn't matter. You got to take some time, and even if you have to schedule it in your calendar, you deserve it. And I think we forget that.
Yeah.
You know, we put everyone's needs in front of ours, but you totally deserve some love, you know, from yourself.
Yes. Before we can give it to others.
Before we can give it to others. It's so, so, so important. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned with my practice. And that's probably what brought me to yoga in the first place, taking this full circle. When I said I started yoga because I was working 3 jobs. Why was I working 3 jobs? Because I don't feel worthy enough to love myself. So I kept myself busy instead of taking care of myself. So what brought me to yoga was that, where then I learned to love myself in a class that I didn't feel like I belonged in, you know? So it's the same thing, just have the courage to love yourself no matter what it is. Wear whatever you want. If you want to wear a bikini, girl, go for it. As long as you love yourself, and who cares what other people say, you know?
Because it's their story that they're working out.
It's their story, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, how exciting for you. I wish you all the best on this new venture, because this new part of your practice,
yeah.
as you sit and you listen and you decipher what's next. And how lucky that I get to be part of this and watch and listen and be here for you too. So thank you for this time. Thank you, listeners, for listening in. Come back and do yourselves a huge favor. Come and see us. Come see Caitlin here at Shine. You won't regret it. It is the best hour and 15 minutes you will ever spend.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Love you guys. Namaste.
Namaste.